We need to find a way to get in good trouble, necessary trouble, if we're going to save America.
This is Paige. Welcome to the Necessary Trouble Show. Here's your host, my dad, Russell Fugett.
Welcome back to the Necessary Trouble Show here at the Good Word Digital Studios. I'm so excited to be joined by Hana Hawthorne, who, like me, is a Crofton, Maryland resident. And I was just so excited this summer to learn her story and to see her activism. Hana is a student at Elon College and is the founder of the Black Lives Matter Allies of Anne Arundel County Facebook page. And she organized a series of protests this summer, one of which I had the chance to be a part of. Hana, thanks for being a part of the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So as a Crofton native, and I'm someone who's only lived in this area for about a little over 7 years, tell us, how did you get active? What spurred you to your activism and to launch the Facebook page this summer?
So I actually protested in DC, and I saw how I felt how it was just so moving, and the feeling of being empowered by being at a protest was just unbelievable. And I felt that I could bring that to my community where it's primarily white and Christian. And I felt that we needed something here because there are Black families and a few Hispanic families and Indian families here. And so I really thought that was important to bring to the community. So I organized my first protest. I just put flyers up and organized them on social media. And it was pretty amazing. I was expecting maybe 50 people, and probably about 600 people showed up. It was really, really moving, and I was really proud of my community for that. And then afterwards, so many young people came up to me wondering what they could do. And so that's when I decided to create the Facebook page and keep people in the loop and just have that there as a support.
Wow, well, I know I speak for a lot of Crofton residents myself that's saying we were proud of you, and I was just, again, excited to see there was young, thoughtful activism taking place right in my now hometown, my adopted hometown here of Crofton, Maryland, and Anne Arundel County, where there's such a fascinating history here in the African American community, and of course, growing Latino, Latinx community, Hispanic community here as well. So what have you been doing as you've headed back to school? I know from what I've understood, you're taking classes virtually. What is your activism looking like now as we head back to the school year and as we head towards the election?
So I've got a couple things I'm planning. I don't want to give too much away quite yet. I'm still in the organizing phases, but I'm definitely not done. There's still so much work that needs to be done. And I am urging young people like me to come forward. And if you feel some sort of way about this stuff going on in our world right now, act now. It's important, and we need that.
Excellent. How can people, best stay connected? Is the Facebook page is the best place to stay connected?
Yes, definitely. I also have an Instagram. It's the same thing. It's AA County or Black Lives and Allies _ AA County, but the Facebook page is primarily where I put all my stuff, and people have the option to create their own posts and share them on there. And people really, I think, enjoy having the page because there's nothing really like that for our area.
Good. I hope everybody will stay connected there. I know I discovered that page and stay connected. Now, Hana, I want to go, I guess, a little further back. And I know, you've spent, from what I've gathered, a good part of your youth coming of age in this area. What in your youth really spurred you to really identify this moment and to spring into action?
Recently with the death of George Floyd, the mixture of emotions, just anger and exhaustion and just everything. I'm tired of worrying about my family, my friends, and I just am tired. So that really spurred the whole me starting protests and the movement and such. But, growing up was really hard for me since I'm biracial, finding a place where I really fit in. I never really fit with the white people. I never really fit with the Black people. I'm also Jewish, so I never really fit with them either. So it took me until college to really be comfortable in my own skin and confident in myself, and confident that I am who I am. So I joined the Black Student Union at my school. I joined the Center for Race, Ethnicity, and Diversity Education. And I met some really amazing people that have helped me and love me for who I am.
That's beautiful, Hana. That really is, and this gives me goosebumps hearing your story and sharing a little bit of your journey. So, what are you majoring in at Elon, and what do you think the future holds beyond your college years as you think about your activism in your life and how you intend to continue to make an impact?
So I am majoring in human service studies, and I am triple minoring in criminal justice studies, psychology, and African American studies. Honestly, I really have no idea what I'm doing after college. I am kind of hoping that, what I'm doing with my activism stuff will just take me somewhere, wherever that may be. I think I will. I just want to enjoy it and make a difference and help people.
Well, you've already begun to do that, and that's all that matters. So I'm just going to conclude our time today by thanking you for bearing with us through some technical challenges to get on here, and just to take a moment to encourage you and all the other young people who may be watching and wondering, what the future holds and where their journey might take them. The most important part is the journey. So I just am so proud of you, and I can't wait to have the chance to meet you in person, seeing that we're neighbors, and just want to encourage you, and myself and all of our team here at Necessary Trouble Show are available to you as you go forward to be a resource and an ally. Hana, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Welcome back to the Necessary Trouble Show. I'm blessed and honored to have two very special friends and guests join us to talk a little bit about education and youth empowerment. First, I have my good friend Rashad Staton, who is founder of Catalyst of Change, LLC, a youth empowerment organization. And he's also the youth engagement specialist at Baltimore City Public Schools. And then I'm also joined by George Rice, who is the CEO, and that is Chief Empowerment Officer of Triple Threat Enterprises. And gentlemen, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be on here on Necessary Trouble. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having us, Russell. Appreciate it.
All right. And Coach Rice, also head coach.
Yes, sir.
So Rashad, I want to start with you. What's going on the ground in Maryland? I know you had a program in Montgomery County, Maryland, the suburb of DC recently, but I know you're also focused a lot of your work in Baltimore City and of course through the Baltimore school system as kids are going back to school, particularly our African American, our Black youth. What is the situation on the ground right now in terms of e-learning and how are we working to support our youth right now?
Yeah, so there's a multitude of different avenues and angles that myself and others that is working in the youth landscape field or community are doing. In particular, the schools, we have an 80% engagement and participation rate at the current moment for young people being reconnected to virtual learning. So we're now being intentional and purposeful with trying to identify, connect with that 20% that we have not been able to, um, get on board with our school district. And what I've done as the youth engagement specialist for city schools is create opportunities where young people can show up in representation and have ownership around agency and decision making tables. So within the last 2 weeks, launching two large district wide leadership councils for young people to be at decision making tables with senior leaders, the CEO of city schools, and other district cabinet professionals. That gives a space for our young people to give their immediate thoughts, opinions, and perspectives, and even suggestions around how we can be innovative towards education moving forward. I think this forces us to go within an unorthodox approach towards education. But to do that, our most important stakeholders is the young person. So for us to be intentional and be effective and impactful towards education or academic success, the young person must tell the professionals what it should look like, how should it feel, what it should sound like, some things that they deal with in their everyday lives using social media. How can we correlate that back to academic participation, right? And that's a lot of the work that we're doing for the city schools. The work that I'm doing at across in a larger spectrum outside of the school environment is activating youth advocacy and voice. being a fellow for the NEKC Emerging Leaders cohort for the second year, um, ramping up catalysts of change so that we can create and continue a sustainable youth fellowship program that teaches our young people around civic engagement and make politics as usual and as normal as it is, right? That politics doesn't have to be a cookie cutter image person that's in a suit and tie, but politics is all of us telling each other what our interests are, what our needs are, and holding each other accountable. So just making high level things translating to our young people so that they can digest it and be a part of next steps, decisions, and things of that sort.
Excellent. And George, and of course, as is the case for you, Rashad, George, I know you do a lot of work normally under normal circumstances with a lot of young people and actually traveling around the country and in rooms and inspiring and coaching young people towards success with Triple Threat. What is the landscape looking like right now in this virtual world, and what are some of the things you're working on to empower our youth and keep them engaged in this season of COVID?
Even in the pandemic, there are still opportunities that I've been able to take advantage of in terms of really looking at it from both sides of the desk, so to speak, doing a lot of, I suppose you could call it personal. Well, I'm doing a lot of personal development, personal coaching with higher ed students, even students that are making their transition from high school to their first year of college. But on the other side of the desk, I'm doing a lot of team building with a lot of professional staff members, those who are administrators, those who are actually teaching, that are frontline employees that are actually engaging directly with students. And I'm sure, Russell, as you know, you have smaller children. It's a lot. It's a different beast in terms of trying to engage people through a computer screen. But I don't know what's more challenging, engaging staff, college students, or even primary grade students. And so just doing a lot of masterminds. Actually, I have a mastermind that will launch actually next week. That's going to start for the fourth quarter of 2020, doing a mastermind just around personal development and how to get people to kind of pivot. And as we go into, the weather is changing a lot of places, but as we,
Right.
a lot of people are getting cabin fever. We were forced to be inside, before the summer came. Summer's been here, but how to make better use of their time and energy now that they may be confined. Well, I shouldn't say confined, but limited to their particular households. And so just trying to get them to carve out different spaces where they can make or take advantage of the time that they have available that maybe they didn't have before when they had to actually go to a brick and mortar place to perform their duties.
Excellent. Now, Rashad, what's the long-term thinking, amongst our leadership around our youth? I know most of the school systems, at least here in the Maryland area, are thinking, at least through January, they're going to remain in the virtual mode. I think most people are predicting it's probably going to be the whole school year. What do you anticipate happening, and how can we keep youth engaged? And you have any advice for parents and how they can help to keep our youth engaged during this season?
Yeah, so our aim this year, looking at the whole the school year and its totality, is the idea. Our leadership decided that they were going to start the school year off virtual just to be on the safe side as well, but also to take in consideration through board approval that they will then reconsider having schools possibly reopen with a hybrid model where our student population will be accessing or receiving in-school education pending October, based off of health implications and data, and showing some safety and health precautions that in October, if things are looking up and up, we may transition into a hybrid model where young people are broken down into smaller student populations, what we'll call cohorts, and they'll be in and out of school A and B cycle classes 2 to 3 days out of a week, and then the other student population or demographic then occupies that space on the other days. I think that's our aim. I think that's still of our young people's interests as well. We know that some of our young people, based off of their learning styles and strengths, that some need to be in person. Others have adapted to the virtual learning and are all on board with it and actually excelling. But that's all based off of family supports, interest in education and their own intuitiveness to be adaptable. But I think what I would say for suggestions for even parents right now, right? You got to be a parent, you got to be a teacher, you got to be a daycare provider, and you got to be an employer if you are gainfully employed, all at the same time. So I think the first step is just prioritizing mental health. I think a lot,
Mm.
right? Prioritizing mental health and creating some sense of a schedule or routine so that you can keep some consistency. Everything is not going to be perfect. So even trying to aim for perfection is going to often lead to stress and depression and things of that sort. So what we've been telling those and providing is tips around mental health restoration, mindfulness practices for the parents or the guardian, as well as for the young person, just trying to um, edge them on to find some sense of their own independency around consistency and schedule.
Excellent advice. The mental health angle is so important, and so is having a schedule. And I've been driving in my own family to try to create a schedule, and it's really kind of just in the last week or so been able to really begin to happen, and it has been helpful to achieve, and hopefully we can maintain it for as long as possible. George, I wanted to come back to you. I know your daughter recently is a graduate of Hampton, and both of our guests are HBCU alum. George, I know you're a Morehouse man yourself, and Rashad is you're at Morgan State. And Rashad, if you want to jump in on this after George, feel free quickly. But George, I wanted to ask you, what are you seeing in higher ed when it comes to HBCUs, or what are you hearing? Because of course we hear that different colleges and universities, many state schools, and more mainstream universities are having issues with COVID and having students back. But what I've gathered is that a lot of HBCUs have gone virtual or have put in place very well thought out restrictions, and that the communities of students are actually, for the most part, honoring them. And now you don't hear much in the news about any COVID outbreaks or any issues. Is that because the news isn't covering it, or is it because really things are going well either virtually or otherwise on campuses at our HBCUs?
Yeah, I think when you talk about HBCUs, you have to look at it from two different sides. You do have quite a few HBCUs that are very fortunate to be state institutions. So they may be privy to some state funding that can kind of help them stay afloat in terms of operations. But then maybe some of our private HBCUs may have a little bit more of a struggle in terms of funding. I've heard about some furloughs at the HBCU level. I've heard about some abbreviated work days and, well, hey, you can work until this date and then we're going to have to furlough you, so on and so forth. And so I know at Hampton University, where my daughter graduated from, I know they announced that they were going to definitely do all virtual. And so, of course, people don't understand, residence halls and dining, that accounts for a large, portion of the tuition and the budget. And so when you take that whole piece out in terms of room and board, and which includes meals, you're talking about a major deficit here. And even if you have corporate donors, private donors, excuse me, even grants from state and local entities, it's still hard to make ends meet. But at the same time, keep the people who are on the front lines, like the professors, enthusiastic and engaged in learning. And most of them, as you know, most of the professors are dedicated to the craft, dedicated to the ministry. And so, they're going to be there and do what is necessary for the enrichment of the students, because they know just because they can't be there in person that this particular journey must be finished. And so I just applaud the HBCUs for being able to pivot in that way. But in terms of them, not necessarily reporting cases of COVID, I think for the most part, smaller institutions, specifically HBCUs, have literally just obeyed the code, and they're like, okay, we are not taking any chances. As a matter of fact, they were supposed to do a fall graduation for my daughter, and Hampton does their graduation outside, and they could have very easily done it, but then they just said, no, we're probably going to push it back to the spring. But I get it, because that is also another cost to set up and tear down, especially for a fall graduation, which they never have. Is a whole nother, it's a whole, because they rent all that stuff, not to mention you have to have security, you have to have so many other staff members to actually fund it. So it's a big production, no matter what size your institution is, whether you're HBCU or PWI, to put that on. So I've heard good stuff from even some of the students that I know that are still at HBCUs. Of course, it's a major adjustment, but they're still enthusiastic and optimistic about the end of their matriculation.
Rashad, tell us a little bit about the fellowship program as we wrap up here that you're doing at Catalyst of Change.
Yeah, so Catalyst of Change, LLC is a consulting company and service provider that provides entities and supports around asset-based and positive youth development outcomes through providing services and trainings and some best practices for young people or for adult partners to build up our young people in an aspirational way. I saw the need of activating a youth fellowship program. One, because that allowed me to learn some interpersonal development and soft and hard skills that I think our young people need to be privy to and have the same accessibility. So, Catalyst of Change Youth Fellowship is in its second year of activation, in which we piloted in Montgomery County to make my broader impact of youth engagement larger than just Baltimore itself. But we wanted to just then intentionally build out in other surrounding counties and communities. That allowed us to then tap with 21 young people from middle school all the way to early high school age to be in this cohort of 21 young people that learn from each other, build up each other, and learn from actual thought partners that are on the ground, right? Around funding, around advocacy work, around policy, around language, around voice, around confidence, right? And now in our second year, we're trying to bring it back to Baltimore through the supports of some of our philanthropic agencies and other grant cycles that allow us to be more specific to what is culturally relatable and pertinent to Baltimore and our young people in Baltimore for them to have positive outcomes. So we're looking very optimistically towards the future in the coming months, and it's building up. Momentum has built up. When we piloted last year, everyone was like, why is this not existing in Montgomery County, which was a purposeful tactic for me. But to see the excitement build around having it be possibly being back at Baltimore while still operating simultaneously in another county, I can just only see the betterment of it. These young people have met with U.S. senators, U.S. congressmen. They have met with philanthropic agencies to pitch their own businesses. The young people then in Montgomery County connected with the young people in D.C. for their Youth Works program and started to do convenings with their wardsmen and things of that sort. So it's a full connection and just intentionally creating an ecosystem where our young people have power to civic engagement.
Excellent. So proud of the work you've done, brother. And I know we've been talking about it for a while, and to see what you did back in the fall of 2019 into 2020 with the program in Montgomery County is awesome. George, I know you got a book out and then a podcast launching next year. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. Authored my first book at the end of 2019. It's called Rebound for Success: 5 Ways to Turn Adversity into Your Accomplice. I have the Coach to Coach podcast, which will debut in January of 2021. I just finished, I just turned into my editor, my second book, which is called 5 Files That Every College Freshman Commits. That's due out hopefully the end of this year. So man, just working, making the most of this downtime or uptime, since we're kind of on punishment, so to speak.
Well, thank you so much, George Rice, the Chief Empowerment Officer of Triple Threat LLC. Thanks for joining us. And Rashad Staton, the founder of Catalyst of Change LLC and Youth Engagement Specialist for Baltimore City Public Schools. Gentlemen, thank you for being on the Necessary Trouble Show.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching The Necessary Trouble Show. Please visit necessarytroubleshow.com to support the show and to learn more. Subscribe to our e-newsletter and podcast, and follow us on social media at Necessary Trouble Show.
This is Paige. Thanks for watching.